The gym was buzzing that afternoon. The sound of gloves hitting heavy bags echoed across the floor, mixed with the squeak of sneakers on polished mats. Fighters in training swapped tips, sparred lightly, and bragged about their latest wins. But all of that noise dimmed the moment a certain voice cut through the air. "Hey you, janitor." Heads turned. In the corner of the gym, a man with salt and pepper hair was quietly sweeping the mats, his posture humble, his movements unhurried. His dark blue janitor's uniform looked out of place among the flashy shorts and gear of the fighters. The voice belonged to Darius, a young man in his 20s. Built like a tank, cocky grin plastered on his face, he had recently earned his black belt. To him, that strip of cloth around his waist was proof he was untouchable. And now, in front of an audience of students and trainers, he wanted to prove it. "Come on, old man," Darius smirked, tossing his gloves onto the floor. "Why don't we see what you got? Just for fun. One round. Unless you're scared." Laughter rippled through the gym. Some people smirked, others shook their heads. Everyone knew the janitor. Quiet, respectful, always keeping the place spotless. His name was James. No one had ever seen him do more than mop sweat or carry buckets. James looked up slowly, locking eyes with the young fighter. His expression was calm, unreadable. He leaned the broom against the wall and spoke in a steady, almost tired voice. "Son, you sure you want this?" That line hung in the air. It wasn't loud, it wasn't threatening, but it made the crowd go quiet. The students glanced at each other, intrigued. Some whispered, curious if James might actually step onto the mat. Darius puffed out his chest, laughing. "Yeah, I'm sure. Don't worry, I'll go easy on you. Just a little spar, right?" James sighed, pulled off his work gloves, and began rolling up the sleeves of his uniform. His hands, worn and calloused, told a story no one in the room had heard yet. The crowd circled tighter. Phones came out, recording. Nobody wanted to miss what looked like a guaranteed humiliation. A black belt against a janitor? This was going to be a joke. At least, that's what they thought. Because in just a few minutes, they were about to witness something that would leave the entire gym in stunned silence. James stood in the center of the mat now, stretching his arms, rotating his wrists. He didn't bother with a warm-up. Didn't need one. His body moved with the kind of fluidity that comes only from decades of practice, though the crowd didn't notice it yet. To them, he was still just the janitor. "Man, this is going to be hilarious," someone whispered near the back. Another snickered. "That old dude's about to get folded." Darius fed off the laughter, bouncing lightly on his toes, shadowboxing for effect. "Don't blink," he said to the crowd, smirking. But James's mind wasn't on the heckling or the cameras. It drifted, just for a moment, back through the years. 25 years earlier, James wasn't pushing a broom. He was wearing gloves. Real gloves. The kind that smelled of leather and blood and sawdust. Back then, his name carried weight in underground boxing circles. He'd fought across states, racked up wins, even caught the attention of promoters. His record? Impressive. His reputation? Feared. But with skill came jealousy. And with jealousy came enemies. One night, after a controversial fight where James dismantled a crowd favorite, a bar scuffle turned into something worse. Chairs flew, fists swung, and when the dust cleared, James's career was over. Not because he lost, but because he walked away. Walked away from the contracts, the promoters, the dirty money. Walked into a quieter life. Now, decades later, he swept mats for a living, carrying scars on his knuckles and memories in his bones. Back in the gym, James flexed his fingers. His eyes studied Darius, not with fear, but with the patience of someone who had seen hundreds of fighters just like him. Young, hungry, reckless. "Last chance, son," James said quietly, adjusting the strap of his worn-out sneakers. "You don't want this lesson." The words made a few people laugh. They mistook his calm for cowardice. But there was one person in the crowd, a veteran trainer, who didn't laugh. His brow furrowed as he leaned forward, watching James's posture. The way he shifted his weight. The way he breathed. He whispered under his breath. "That man's no janitor." Phones were raised higher. Everyone wanted to capture the moment Darius humbled the old man. But none of them knew. The lesson was about to cut the other way. The whistle blew. Darius sprang forward like a coiled spring, his fists up, his movements sharp. He'd spent years drilling speed, and it showed. He circled James quickly, throwing a few testing jabs, trying to catch the janitor off guard. James didn't even flinch. He just lifted his chin slightly, eyes steady, reading every twitch in Darius's shoulders. "Come on, old man." Darius barked, throwing a jab-cross combination. The crowd hooped as the punches cut through the air. Fast, practiced, textbook. But they hit nothing but air. James shifted his weight an inch. Just an inch. Smooth. Effortless. Like the punches had been predicted before they were thrown. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Darius tried again, this time with a flurry, left, right hook, low kick. His body snapped like a whip, each strike sharp enough to draw gasps from the untrained eyes watching. But James's movements were different. He didn't move more than he needed. A tilt of the head. A step back. A twist at the hip. His sneakers squeaked softly against the mat, almost like a rhythm. The crowd's laughter faded into silence. Something wasn't right. Darius grew frustrated. "Stop running," he yelled, rushing forward. He threw a wild overhand right. James caught it. Just caught it. His weathered hand, scarred and veined, wrapped around Darius's wrist like steel. The gym went dead silent. In that frozen second, James looked him in the eyes. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of authority. "You're not listening. Fighting isn't about strength. It's about control." Before Darius could react, James shifted his weight, turned his body, and with a single smooth motion, dropped the young black belt flat onto the mat. The sound echoed through the gym like a gunshot. The crowd erupted, half gasps, half disbelief. Darius scrambled to his feet, red-faced, furious. "Lucky throw," he snapped, charging again. But James wasn't playing for luck. Every strike that came, he redirected. Every kick he smothered. He didn't hit back, not once. He didn't need to. He was teaching, not fighting. And the more Darius swung, the clearer it became. The janitor was controlling everything. His breathing never quickened, his steps never faltered. He was water, and Darius was drowning in it. Finally, drenched in sweat, Darius lunged with everything he had left. James slipped aside and lightly tapped him on the chest. Just a tap, barely more than a push. But it sent Darius sprawling backward, collapsing onto the mat, out of breath, staring up at the ceiling. Silence. Then slowly applause. Not mocking this time. Real. Respectful. The trainer in the back whispered again, this time loud enough for those around him to hear. "That man's a fighter. A real one." The crowd didn't know what to say. Their phones had captured it all. But what they witnessed was more than just a spar. It was a lesson. A story that would ripple far beyond that gym. And Darius, his pride shattered, but something else had been planted in its place. Humility. Darius lay on the mat, chest heaving, staring up at the fluorescent lights. For the first time in years, he wasn't the one standing tall. He wasn't the center of admiration. And strangely, the sting wasn't just in his ribs, it was in his pride. James extended a hand. Rough. Calloused. The kind of hand that had seen decades of work most men avoided. "Get up, son," he said softly. Darius hesitated, then clasped it. The old man's grip was firm, unshaking. When James pulled him to his feet, it felt less like defeat, and more like being lifted. The crowd broke into applause. Not the wild, mocking kind from before, but slow, deliberate claps that grew into something larger. "Respect," one of the younger fighters whispered. "I thought he was just the janitor." Another corrected him. "No, he's the teacher we didn't know we had." James didn't bow, didn't gloat, didn't even smile. He simply adjusted his faded work shirt, nodded once to Darius, and started walking toward the door. "Wait," Darius called after him, his voice trembling with something new, humility. "Who are you?" James paused at the edge of the mat, his back to the crowd. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, without turning, he replied, "Someone who fought long before you were born. Someone who learned the hard way that discipline matters more than belts." And just like that, he left. The gym buzzed. Phones were already lighting up as people replayed the footage, their voices colliding in excitement. But Darius stood quietly, lost in thought. That night, he didn't sleep. He replayed every second of the spar, every dodge, every effortless move James made. For the first time, he realized all his trophies, all his belts, meant little without humility. The next morning, he showed up at the gym early. Not to train others. To sweep the mats. To scrub the mirrors. To pick up where James had left off. And when the younger fighters mocked him, he didn't snap back. He smiled. Because he understood now, respect isn't demanded. It's earned. Months later, a video clip surfaced online. The title was simple. The Janitor Who Taught a Black Belt a Lesson. It went viral. Millions of views. Comments from around the world. People weren't laughing at Darius anymore. They were inspired by James. Some even recognized him. "That's James Carter," one comment read. "Former regional champion. Disappeared years ago after an accident. Guess he never stopped training. And just like that, the world rediscovered a legend who had been sweeping floors in silence. As for Darius, he never forgot that day. Because in that single spar, James didn't just humble him. He rewrote his future. And every fighter who watched learned the same truth. Respect the quiet ones. They're often the strongest in the room.